Hey guys, Huzzy here bringing you another video. Now this is another episode of League Discussion. This is where I take a topic that is suggested by you guys and I rip it apart to its bare bones to make it understandable, to just give my opinion on it and all that type of thing. Today, the topic we're going to be talking about is basically what makes a champion in the meta and everything around that type of subject. As a lot of people say to me, like I get a lot of people asking me to play certain champions while I'm streaming or even in YouTube series, and there are various reasons why I won't play certain champions, and a big one is because I don't think they're very strong in the current meta. Now, to a lot of people, they don't understand what that exactly means, because let's just give Tryndamere as an example. He's a popular in this sense that people go, no, he's a very strong champion, but then I'll say no, he's a strongish champion, but he's weak in the meta. Now, people may not understand what that means, and that's kind of what I want to get through to you guys today. So once again, just to say, this is a discussion. You do not need to watch this video. You can minimize it. My suggestion would be minimize the video, go into League of Legends, into a custom game, and practice your last hitting, because why not? Everybody needs to improve on last hitting, and it's a good time to do it. So, the meta itself, just to quickly explain what the meta is, because some people may be watching this or listening to it going, I don't even know what that is, if you're brand new to League of Legends. The meta is, let's just say, a group of popular champions that are very strong, and the reason why they are played so much is because they have more benefits than negatives. And all these champions that are currently being played make up what the meta is right now. Now, the meta does change. The meta is never perfect, because if the meta was perfect, it would never change. And obviously, there are different ways that the meta can change, which again, we'll be going through today. So, let's just quickly go through it. I have like 4 main kind of titles of how a champion becomes meta, just to quickly say what they are. Buffs, nerfs, what other champions are being played, and strategy. So they're kind of the 4 big ones. So let's firstly just go into buffs. Now buffs can be one of 2 things. It can be buffs to the actual champion or buffs to certain items. So let's just give random examples, as in, if a item, say Blade of the Ruined King, say if that got buffed really highly, that would probably make champions like Vayne, Tryndamere, etc. more viable, because them champions are suited to them items more, and if them items get buffed, that in fact makes the champion stronger, because they always build them items. So you got to look out for that, and that also goes, well, let's just quickly go with nerfs. If an item gets nerfed or removed from the game, that also can have a negative effect on the champion. Biggest example I can give right now is Fizz. DFG got removed from Fizz, as well as nerfs to the actual champion itself in a certain way. And what has that done? That has removed Fizz as an AP mid laner, and it's put him up top as an AD bruiser, because of an item change and an actual champion change as well. And that's how champions and stuff move around the meta. That's how champions can come into the meta and also go out of the meta. So that's fairly basic. That's how change happens. If a champion gets buffed, it can come into the meta. If it gets nerfed, it may get released from the meta. People may not, may stop playing it. And the same goes with items. If an item gets buffed, if an item gets nerfed. So they're just 2 basic ones. I think everybody will kind of know them ones. Now, here's where it gets a bit more in-depth, and a lot of people don't really think about these type of reasons as much, is what other champions are being played in the meta. Now, as somebody that is always saying, forget, I always say in solo queue, forget the meta. Play whatever you are personally strong at. If you're very good, let's just say, as Poppy top lane, and you're bad at everything else, play Poppy. I will stand by that statement to the rest, for the rest of my life. But if you can, play meta champions you're good at, because they are technically stronger. But one thing within League of Legends also is counters do exist. There are certain champions that are just good against other champions in the way that their kits are, in the way that the item builds go, and that does come into play a little bit. Now, it doesn't come into play as much in solo queue, because again, honestly, you can get to probably Challenger just playing one champion against everything. People do it all the time, and that's because the meta doesn't really matter in solo queue, and counters don't really matter in solo queue. If you're good with a champion, you can carry your way up. But when it comes to competitive play, LCS, that type of thing, that's kind of where counters come into play. That's why Jax got a little bit of a boost of popularity a few weeks ago, because Jax is very good versus Gnar. And that's kind of what happens. Jax was not popular for ages, and then people kind of figured out, hang on, Jax is actually good against Gnar, let's pick him up again. And nothing happened to Jax, no buffs, no changes. The only thing happened was that Gnar was being played more, and Jax is good versus Gnar. So the meta is heavily influenced by champions that are currently already in it. And that is one of the biggest ways that the meta can change, is in... You know, let's just go back like 6 months ago, maybe even up to a year. Renekton and Jax were kind of the top two top laners. Then suddenly everybody started playing Trundle. It was like literally out of nowhere. People were just like, boom, Trundle is now a top tier top laner. The reason for that is because Trundle mainly countered like Renekton. You know, take away his tanky stats, give them to me. I also can kill you in lane because I get Bork early. And that is the reason. There had no buffs or nerfs happen to Trundle. It was just because other champions were being played, Trundle could beat them. So that is another way. And then the final way that it can happen is strategy. Now again, this is a bit more complex and not necessarily as big in solo queue than the other ways. But the final point I'll go on, and you know, I'll go on to, does affect this as well. Strategy. So if you're going for a team fight orientated champion, a poke, you know, strategy, all these type of things, a split push. Different champions suit different strategies. You can't simply play a full, a rubbish team fighting team, let's say, of built with champions, and then try to team fight all the time. It's not how it works. Especially in the higher ratings, you actually have to suit a good strategy, or have a strategy, and adapt your champions to that strategy. And again, that's how the meta can change also. Because let's say the meta becomes a very team fight orientated meta. And then what counters team fight? Poke counters team fight, because you stay away from their team fight and you poke them down before they can get on top of you. And so that strategies counter each other, which again opens new champions up, and therefore the meta changes. Now all of these points obviously do change the meta, but there is one big one, and this is the one that I think, because there are, let's just say, pro meta players and anti meta players. There are people that are like all for the meta. I'm one of these players. That I literally will only play meta champions because I believe that is my strongest chance of winning the game. Then you'll have other people that are just, they refuse to play meta champions no matter what. They just don't like the idea. They think of people that play in the meta as sheep, and they don't want to be these said sheep, so they'll do anything they can to not play meta champions, which in effect is you're putting yourself at risk playing weaker champions. But you know, I don't really know that. But the reason for this, why people dislike the meta so much, is for this next big reason, is it's a popularity contest. And it pretty much is, to be honest. Now there is reasons behind the popularity. Obviously, people like Faker or Doublelift aren't going to play weak champions. So there is some like fire, you know, or there is some wood to the fire, let's just say, of them picking these champions. But I don't know what it is. For some people, they're just like, no, I don't want to play that champion because everybody's playing it. To me, I don't get that mentality, but some people do have it. So just to further the point, popularity is a big thing when it comes to the meta changing or how the meta is. The biggest example you can ever give is Faker. Faker is the mid laner for SKT, world champion, known as one of the best mid laners in the game. You used to have the title as the best mid laner in the game, but nowadays it's a bit more up for contest with like Dade and stuff. But Faker, if he literally goes in OGN and plays something completely random, that will most likely become meta. Big example is Zilean. Nobody played Zilean, and then 1 week, I believe it was in OGN, Faker pulled it out. I think it was just before Worlds. He pulled it out, and then during Worlds, Zilean was played, and then people just picked him up. Bjergsen picked him up, and all these players picked Zilean up because Faker did. But again, the reason why he picked Zilean up as an example is because he knew Zilean offered something. And that's how the meta changes, is that a professional player sees this champion and goes, actually that could work. They try it, they like it, and then they play it on the big stage, and then the trickling down effect happens. You know, if I'm watching a stream, if I watch Faker, and I see he's playing something, let's just say Ziggs. Ziggs is not in the meta at the moment. Faker pulls out Ziggs. I'm like, oh, if Faker's playing Ziggs, that probably means Ziggs is actually okay. I'll play Ziggs. And then you guys watching me may go, oh, Huzz is playing Ziggs, I'm going to play Ziggs. Like, it's such a big trickling down effect. Obviously, if you go Faker to Bjergsen to PewDiePie, Skara, all these professionals have a big influence on what people play in the game. And it is true. It is true. But again, I will probably, just to kind of say the point, they're not just picking random champions. They are picking champions that they believe are strong. So there's that point too. So that's pretty much this video. I just wanted to really quickly explain what makes a champion meta. So let's just go through it again just to kind of summarize. It is a popularity contest. Whatever the professionals pick will most likely become meta. But they do pick strong champions. So they don't purposely pick weak ones. And then the other ways, champions getting buffed, items getting buffed, champions getting nerfed or items getting nerfed. What other champions are currently being played? So you can play a counter, even if it's not popular, then it's suddenly become popular because of a counter. And then finally, strategy, because strategies counter each other and all this. So that's pretty much it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Again, this is a discussion. So if you, the thing I want to discuss in the comments below, as obviously the meta does change all the time with new champions coming in because people discover that they're actually a strong champion. If you at home right now play a champion that you actually think is really strong, put down in the comments below what champion it is and why do you think that champion should be in the meta. What role would they take? What champions do you think they're better at the moment that are currently in the meta? As an example, let's just go, you play Tryndamere. You think Tryndamere, let's just go completely random, is better than Gnar. You say, right, I play Tryndamere, I think he's a really good top laner, I think he's better than Gnar, and give your reasonings for it. Let's just have a discussion, friendly discussion below. I will be joining in, so thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. So, goodbye.